Hey everybody, welcome to Podcast Demastered. I'm your host Ethan Meyer, and I'm joined, as always, by my two very good friends, Wade and Chelsea. And this is episode 42. Today we're going to be kind of talking about the Oscars in kind of an all-encompassing way, not just running down the nominees and discussing our likes and dislikes, but kind of a lot of top-of-the-funnel stuff, the whole concept of the Oscars, the approach that the Academy's been taking for a couple years, right or wrong, a lot of opinions, a lot of subjectivity. So yeah, we're kind of just gonna be this is our Oscars show. So it's gonna be it's all gonna be all over the place, but directed mostly at the ceremony and the films and the structure and yada yada yada. So with that being said, I'm going to turn things over to our Oscar specialist, Chelsea. She makes it a point every year to watch all the Oscar films. She's a big Oscar nut, so to speak. So this is kind of her time to shine. So Chelsea, why don't you go ahead and take it away?
Oh boy, so I'm an Oscar nut. Okay.
Hey, you're an Oscar
now
nut.
I know my name. Oh gosh. Well, I feel like I should address the fact that I haven't my whole life been into the Oscars. I think I really got into it probably in college. It was just something that my friends and I were just like, oh, it's a fun thing to watch. It was kind of our slightly more sophisticated get-together watch party compared to watching the Super Bowl. It's just something to do and fun.
That's some class to that.
Shots fired. Shots fired.
Oh, just, we had, we would always get, a ton of food and everything and just have a great time. And I think it's a little more exciting sometimes, at least, we talk during the game and pay attention during the commercials for the Super Bowl there.
I would say that's probably most people that watched the Super Bowl.
Yeah, that's the way to do it. But for the Oscars, I think the big part that was always just fun is just trying to guess who's going to win. It was just always that aspect of it. And it was cool if we could see the films, and definitely it's become more of a goal to just watch as many of them as I can. And this year is probably going to be the year I have watched the absolute most of them. So there are actually, I think it's 54 total nominated films. So far, I have seen 42 of them.
Nice.
Wow. Damn.
Has it become easier to consume all of that because of streaming? Because before you had to wait for those limited releases in theaters or the re-releases after they got an Oscar nom. They do that 1 week run kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And unless you lived in a bigger market, some of these really indie films were hard to come by. But now with streaming, most of these films are available on different platforms.
Oh yeah, no, definitely. Streaming has definitely been a big, I think, game changer for a lot of these nominees, because I will still make a note, I have not been to the theater since before the pandemic. So I was able to watch all these movies streaming or renting them from Redbox or just also getting them on demand. So it's really great that these movies that have been nominated are also more accessible to the common person, at least through watching at home.
Yeah.
So I think that, I will mention that is kind of a change compared to a lot of these films. I think have been those where some people may have heard of a couple of them and then be like, what are these other ones and where the heck do I go see them? Oh, I go see them in this theater that's 3 hours away that's only showing at 7:00 on a Friday or something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Wade and I both worked in the theater, and anytime this time of year would come, you'd always get these very obscure niche films that would have one show time at 4:00 on a Saturday or a matinee on Tuesday or something. It's just what the hell is this? It's just oh, these are your Oscar windows to watch these films.
Yeah, that's so true. So I mean, that's kind of my experience with the Oscars. And so like I said, so I've watched 42 of them, so I have 12 left. I think I'll be able to watch all of them except for 3, because 3 of them I cannot find anywhere.
Which 3? Do you know?
One of them, okay, it's Box Ballet, which is up for animated short. I think it's, and then two of them might be documentaries of sorts.
Oh, okay.
I think one of them's a short and the other one is a feature, I believe.
Gotcha.
So, or it might be an international film, I think. It's either one of those, but
Right.
it's pretty amazing because I think a lot of, specifically those categories too, that are the animated live action shorts, documentary shorts, and features, like those are ones of some of those films that are very hard to come by.
Yeah, usually,
Or at least
in the past, like it's really hard to come across like the short films, like animated or otherwise. Like it's just because they don't have theater releases, and they're always in like obscure like festivals, or like coming across them is like not like a normal a normal thing for your average like moviegoer, I would say.
Yeah, and I think I've noticed too, I think it's probably been the last couple years that there's it's called like the short something or short, like specifically where they do a grouping of all the short films nominated and they have them at select times that you can go to different theaters and you can just watch them all one right after the other.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
So there's that, but yeah, so like I said, that's kind of like my experience with the Oscars, what I kind of know about them. I do like film, obviously, so that's why I do like to watch the Oscars, see, just try to guess who's going to get the Oscar and even who's going to get nominated. But, okay, what about you guys? What's your experience with the Oscars? Do you care about them? What do you know about them?
So I used to, kind of the same way with you. Like I remember watching the Oscars a lot with my mom and sister, and it's kind of for the same reason. Like even if we didn't watch all the films, it was more just like fun to like try and guess who was gonna win. You know what I mean? Even if it was just like for the more like top billing stuff, like all the best picture or best actor, stuff like that. And a lot of it for us at the time, having not seen a lot of the films, it was more just like, oh, I really like this actor, so I hope they win. I don't even know what the movie was, but that kind of thing.
Yeah, definitely understand that.
So yeah, it was kind of more just like a fun thing to watch as a family and just kind of, I don't know, digest it that way. I've always been like a movie buff, but especially at that time, I never really made an attempt to watch more like indie or like art house films. A lot of my early film appreciation was more for like quote unquote like blockbuster, more like mass produced film, I guess. And it wasn't until like college that I started watching more like the indie scene and the more niche films. Like I like watching classics my whole life, but watching classic films, you're not seeing those at like award shows because they were at award shows 60 years ago. You know what I mean? So it's like, but I think the last Oscar ceremony I watched in its entirety was like 2009, I think. Whatever year Hurt Locker won. Because I remember watching Hurt Locker and was not overly impressed, and then it was like the Oscar darling that year and won everything, and I was just like, I'm out. I'm checking out of this. And I still keep up with the nominees, and I still try and watch the films. I just don't I don't watch the show anymore. Partly because a lot of the times it's just so dull. Like I don't know. It's just a lot of the times if you disconnect yourself from like the game aspect of just trying to pick the winners and making like an event out of it with like have like a gathering, like a party, like an Oscar party, having people over and stuff. If it's just you watching it, it kind of drags a lot of the times.
Could be something on in the background, I guess.
Yeah. It's like one of those things you have on in the background while you're like doing something like cleaning the house or something, I guess. I don't know. So yeah, I haven't really sat down and watched the show in, over a decade. But like I said, I still keep tabs on the nominees and the films and the snubs and the whole like conversation around it. I just don't ever watch it anymore, you know. Wade, what about you? You're probably the and I don't mean this in a negative way, but you're probably the most casual of like movie out of the three of us, you know, like movie fan or buff or whatever.
Yeah, I mean that would be a correct statement. I watch movies. I like movies. I'm not really into film. Not that I haven't seen nice film before. You know, like I can appreciate them, but it's not something that takes up any amount of space in my head, really.
Yeah, you don't seek it out. It's just one of those things.
Yeah. I mean, I see like if like one of the Oscar movies is up, and I'm like, that actually kind of looks pretty interesting. I'd like to watch that. Like, I'll watch it, but I don't make a point to chase things down or anything like that.
Yeah.
In fact, I don't think I've ever even seen the Oscars before. But that's not specific to the Oscars. I don't think I've ever watched like the Emmys, or anything like.
Yeah.
I like the things that I like, and I don't get swept up into the drama of the awards shows and stuff like that. So
that's probably for the best, honestly, because
just the way you live life, really.
Yeah, it's very tedious and and a lot of unnecessary stress and angst. I would say.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
I would say
that's something.
I was just gonna say, when you said you don't really watch like any of the award shows, I don't think I've ever seen an award show besides the Oscars, and I guess more recent is like the Game Awards. Like, I'll watch that, but like the Emmys, the Golden Globes, and BAFTAs, and the Grammys, and the Country Music Awards, and like any of that shit, like I don't ever watch Kids' Choice Awards, like all that. I don't watch any of
I
that.
forgot about those.
Like, I don't watch any of that stuff.
I watch the game shows these days, but that's because Jeffrey holds a bunch of he holds stuff hostage for his show. So I have
sure.
I sit there and I do something until like I hear world premiere, and then I'm like, okay, I'm listening now.
The Game Awards is like,
so it's like the Super Bowl.
Yeah, the Game Awards is like
Well, not
half
even
award
anymore.
show, half an award show, half like a marketing event.
Yeah, like you watch the marketing stuff.
Yeah.
Yes.
But yeah, that's kind of the three of us and how we handle the Oscars, I guess.
Yeah, no, that was a good point you brought up, you know, that you guys aren't really into like other award shows and stuff too. That's pretty true. I've probably seen a handful of the other ones. I've watched the Golden Globes a couple years, but they're just shows that don't really quite pull me in.
Yeah.
And I think that it's funny because I would say I don't really like watching the Oscars because they're so freaking long, and I don't like the extra fluff they put into. I'm really just there for the awards and seeing the ones that win and everything. But when you're saying there's so many awards, you know, and Wade, you said that you like what you like and you watch what you like, and that's true. Like, I definitely think the Oscars are kind of like very, you know, top tier, but that's not like the definitive decision for me. That doesn't mean that because the Oscars said this, therefore that is the greatest movie of all time for that year.
Yeah, because a lot of times they got it wrong. So.
Yeah, it's so many opinions out there, but I think one of the positive things I would say about the Oscars is that it has helped bring awareness to films that I may not normally know about. Now, there's definitely some that, you know, I've been familiar with. They've been around for a while. There's been a lot of hype, but there's definitely others that I'm just like, oh, that's really interesting. So it kind of either helps like broaden my horizons, or also allows me to see a movie that I would normally not see because I wouldn't like it. But I was like, well, I'll give it a chance because it's nominated. So I'm kind of want to see why people think it deserves something.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with the awareness thing. I think was more true in the past with the Oscars, because that showcase and when that would come out, that was usually the only time you would hear about these kind of films, because you didn't have social media and these streaming services and all this other stuff to kind of help with that awareness. Like nowadays, like I'll hear about all these films even before I know they're Oscar nominated because of like Twitter, you know. And I'm like, oh, cool, this person is talking this film up. I respect them. I will check this film out. And then like months later, it's like, oh, hey, this just got nominated for an Oscar. So I guess it must be good because it's getting award recognition or stuff like that. But you know, before the advent of social media and stuff like that, like unless you were on the film circuit or, you know, going to the theater and just watching whatever was playing, like it's really hard to even know that these films even existed because they didn't have marketing deals, and you know, you're not seeing the commercials all the time. They didn't even have stuff for a lot of those films, especially like international films or documentaries. Like unless you were at the film festival that showed it, you wouldn't even know it would have existed, you know. And like you had the Oscars and award shows to tell you that it was out there. But I think that's nowadays, I think it's a little antiquated in that fact, at least. Like the Oscar more now is kind of like that Oprah stamp that she puts on books. It's like, oh, Oprah versus books, so it's gotta be good. So people still equate that. It's like, oh, this is nominated for an Oscar, so it's got to be a good film. Like that's kind of like what it's still. That's still the value it brings. I think is like people still respect that name carries some weight. You know, even if like it's not totally necessary from like a pure awareness, I guess. Unless you just don't exist on the internet, then sure, I guess.
Well, and I think a lot of the movies that, you know, are nominated for a lot of the bigger awards, that social media has really helped, you know, people understand, you know, what could be nominated and, you know, what's receiving a lot of hype. But I still think, at least for me personally, still feel like, you know, animated short films, live action short films, and even like the international and like documentaries, that both short and feature, those are still categories that I feel, you know, that they still bring that awareness, that the Oscars still bring that light to those nominees. Because, I mean, at least for me, I don't often see, like, oh, you know, here's the latest short film that just came out from so-and-so or anything. Because a lot of those awards, I feel like, can be from a lot of up-and-coming people, too.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's how a lot of people even break ground in the industry is like starting out. You know, if you're not making music videos, you're making shorts, or you know what I mean. Like it's kind of like the first
it does
rung
help
on the ladder. So
Exactly. Well, and I think that kind of brings that talk into. So, if anybody's watched the news or anything, you know that there's been changes with the Oscars, not just with this year, but in previous years. There's been a lot of talk. You know, there's been a decline in viewership and ways they're looking to change things up. Now, are these things that... do you guys have thoughts about these like changes in recent years? Are they more of a reason why you still don't want to watch the Oscars? Do they give you hope for that you may catch them in a future year? What do you guys think?
Well, I think first off, that we should tell the listeners one of the big changes this year that's kind of created some hubbubaloo on the old internet is that they're cutting out a lot of the quote-unquote minor awards out of the telecast and are kind of like pre-recording those and then I guess just like acknowledging them after the fact or during the show or in some form or fashion. But basically a lot of stuff that Chelsea just talked about, that why she even appreciates the Oscars, like the shorts and the more documentaries and like international and more like the tech awards, like all that stuff's not even going to be during the main broadcast. They're essentially just like wiping that off the show. For me, I don't like it. Yes, the Oscars is like a 3.5-4 hour long telecast, but that's kind of what you get when you have like 30 awards. You know, that's kind of that's kind of the lane you picked when you decided to have all these different categories and breaking all that stuff out, and then realizing like, oh hey, we're losing viewership because the show's 4 hours long on a Sunday night and people aren't sticking with it, so let's just cut out, best editing and best makeup and all this other shit that we think people don't like, so maybe we'll get more viewers. That's like the opposite approach you should probably take, because all you're gonna do is the people who aren't watching aren't gonna come back because you got rid of like those awards. All you're doing is pissing off the people who actually watch the show, and then now they're not gonna watch out of protest. So you're just losing more viewers doing it that way. There's already like boycotts, protests, all that shit. Present 20% all 23 or whatever. Like that's been a hashtag for like a month now. So yeah, I definitely think that's the wrong approach to take. Chelsea, what do you think? Since you're
oh yeah, when I found that was when I found that was happening, I was like, are you serious? Way to diminish those awards. Like, don't call it the Oscars and say that, all these categories are there and then just be like, oh, we're going to have a separate ceremony for these other ones just because. It's just like, well, no, you should present all 23 at the same show and maybe cut down on your extra jokes in between.
Yeah. Yeah, honestly, I think if you want to get rid of anything in the show, just get rid of the host. Like, I honestly think, they don't need the host, because the host basically just announces who's gonna announce the award. So you could just cut that person out and just have the people walk up, announce the award. You get the award, and then they have their speech, and then you move on to the next group that walks up, announces. You don't need the host to sit there and tell jokes and have anecdotes or whatever to like I don't. What time are you trying to fill? If your show's already like 4 hours long, why the hell are you like fluffing it out more? Why is Billy Crystal out there doing like a 5 minutes stand up or whatever while we're waiting for
not Billy Crystal?
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, it's just
you leave Billy Crystal alone.
Well, and the Oscars did try for a bit. They did do it without a host for a couple years, but then I don't know, they're like, oh, we need hosts again. But also during the time where they didn't have a host, they still kind of had people that still talked a long time, and I'm like, you're just not calling them a host, you're just having extra people say stuff more.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and like that, I remember that, what was it, like 2 or 3 years ago, like they didn't have a host because they had another controversy that like the Oscars were too white, so then like no one wanted to touch it, so then like all the people they asked to host did not said no. So it's like, all right, we'll just, hey, guess what? We're not going to have a host this year. And it's like, no one wanted to fucking host your show. That's why. So.
Yeah. And like one of the other things that was kind of big was last year's Oscars. That was kind of really odd that happened. Was that normally, I mean, there have definitely been years in the past, but nothing in the recent, like probably 20 plus years, where Best Picture is always announced as the last thing of the night. Last year, they decided to switch it up and did Best Actor at the end.
Yeah.
That it was very.
Was there like
awkward.
somebody like really big that?
Well, I remember
they were trying to hold off on.
I remember at the
there
time
was some
they
speculation.
They thought that it was going to go to Chadwick Boseman. Because he passed away.
Oh, that rings a bell. Yeah.
And then he didn't even win. So,
and then the winner was Anthony Hopkins, and he wasn't even there. He was in bed.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
At his home. And so the ceremony just awkwardly ended with announcing who won, and then it was just kind of like everybody standing there awkwardly, and the credits rolled.
Yeah.
But I was just like, that was just very awkward, just
it was very painful.
uncomfortable, and just you could have just kept everything the same.
Because it seemed like they're like, okay, they're doing this purposefully because they're gonna end on this like big like emotional high note, and then like it was just like a huge thud, and it's just like, wait, what was the point of this? Like, this is so stupid.
I feel like it's kind of just like, oh, let's hurry up and say who Best Picture is, and let's move along. We have other things that are bigger and more important. And then it just ended
Okay.
not
All
that how
right.
they expected.
What they should do is they just need to have all the envelopes in like a hat, and they walk out and just draw one and be like, all right, cool, we're doing best makeup next.
That's a way to spice up the show.
Yeah.
That'll be fun. But yeah, so like I said, doesn't really like it's hurting the show in a way. At least we believe it is that by removing these from the main showing.
I 1,000% think that their numbers are going to be even worse this year, and I bet money that next year they'll bring all those things back, put it back into the live telecast, and try something else stupid and see if they can get, you know, the Wades of the world to watch the show, because that's what they're trying to do. Like not to you know, kind of be so broad about it, but they're trying to get the casual moviegoer to watch the Oscars, because the people who are like enthralled with it already watch. You know, it's everyone else. You're just like your Joe Sixpack that watches maybe 6 movies a year. They're trying to get that person. They're trying to get those Super Bowl numbers for their showcase, because 20 years ago they had those kind of big numbers for their show, you know, and now they don't. And there's a lot of reasons why that could be, but the route that they're taking, I don't think they're ever gonna see those numbers again.
Well, they did add their 2 new categories that don't get real awards, trying to entice the
Jesus Christ, they're like social media campaign.
Yes.
What is it, like best moment or something, or like most
Oh yeah, something
It's
like that.
like-
And then
best clapping moment or some stupid shit like that, or something like that, and then
I think
like
it's
fan
up for
favorite,
interpretation. Yeah.
and then it's like fan favorite film of the year or something.
Didn't like the kids awards like do stuff like that? Like text this to this number
Yeah.
to vote for this thing, which like didn't matter. Like they weren't things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like I think in their mind they're like, oh well, this is how we can get like
The youngins.
youngins and like the more like commercial successful films like acknowledged, because they'll never be acknowledged for awards because of reasons. You know, because like I remember this year the whole Twitter storm nonsense where everyone was upset that Spider-Man wasn't nominated for Best Picture because it was the highest grossing movie or whatever of the year, and it's just like, yeah, that that doesn't mean you're the best picture if you make the most money. So I think the Academy's like, oh well, hey, this is how we can get people who like Spider-Man to watch the Oscars, because maybe it'll win fan film of the year or whatever the shit. But just like with their other thing of cutting out, you know, a segment of the awards, all you're doing is just tarnishing what the Oscar means. You know, you're just making it seem like it doesn't matter anymore. Like there's no. It's the same idea of like, you know, everybody gets a trophy even if you lose. You know, it's the same kind of concept. You know.
Yeah, I think it's kind of difficult too, because yeah, you have this big like thing tarnishing the Oscars with like removing those categories from the main show, but then I think that there is, so, you know, kind of a good idea, or at least more of the idea of with, you know, even though these like little like fake awards seem silly, it's kind of just, I think, to be like, you know, we want your participation in a way. We want it to just, you know, entice the viewer, which I get that idea, you know, try to make it a little more fun from that aspect to feel, you know, like they're a part of the show. But
yeah, they're trying to give a reason.
that's
why
something
these
that's a
people
work
should
in progress.
tune in, but it's like, I think it's a very
Just
like,
not quite right.
last ditch effort. You know, that I don't know. It's funny to me that you see this graphic like every year, where like you see the Oscar numbers year after year and they're like tanking, and then you see the Game Award numbers that used to be like laughable or like ridiculously high now, and that also like that shows how big that the gaming industry is getting. But I'm curious like why that show, besides the fact that the gaming industry is a multi-billion-dollar space now, but like way more people tune in to watch that kind of stuff than any other award show. And is it because there's marketing involved with it? Is it because it's, it's got that balancing act of like, hey, we're going to do a couple of awards, and then we're going to do a world premiere trailer, and then we're going to do a couple more awards, and then we're going to do something else. You know what I mean? Like, is it more because it's like it's got more to offer besides just awards? Like, is that something the Oscars needs to do? Like, kind of implement some more like marketing into it. Like, maybe we do a couple of awards, and they're like, oh, hey, now we got a world premiere trailer for this film that's coming out December or whatever, this big, and then we'll do a couple more awards, and then maybe like an announcement for a film that's gonna start. You know what I mean? Like, would that get people more interested?
Well, maybe it's better than the voting for the fan favorite. Get them to have a world premiere for these big blockbuster films. They have to watch it to.
Because, like,
I don't know, it could be.
There's not really a space for that kind of stuff. You know what I mean? Like,
Mm-hmm.
like CinemaCon and which is more for like theater chains essentially. And then you used to have stuff like Comic-Con with like Hall H showings that were like a private viewing, but that stuff would always leak like the next day. But like, there's not really like a big showpiece for like movie content like that. It's just all these studios just kind of choose to release whenever they want. Like, maybe there needs to be an agreement where the Oscars is kind of like that big show that everyone looks forward to for, like, if they don't care about the awards, they still care about like all these films that are coming out that we haven't seen anything for. You want to see what the next big Marvel film looks like, watch the Oscars. That trailer's going to debut. I mean, they do that shit during the Super Bowl. How many people watch the Super Bowl just for the commercials and the film trailers and stuff that come out? You know what I mean? Like, that's a large majority of the people that watch is for that. So.
Well, and on the other hand, though, I can say that in a way the Oscars, like, even though, it's about the awards and stuff, it's sometimes I feel like it takes away from the awards, because some of the awards you're like, okay, they're announced and like they only have like 10 seconds on stage. It really feels like that for some awards versus others, and they don't get their time to shine. It's more like maybe that should be more of the focus of the Oscars, focusing on these films, and maybe even doing a bit more of a trailer for those films to even get those films more recognition for the audience, especially those that, may not get as much, except, those categories are kind of being cut this year, so.
Right, yeah.
But something like that, or even like, well, because like you could say with like makeup and costuming, it's like a behind the scenes type little view to see how they put it on and stuff, because you don't always see that in the Oscars. You only see sometimes certain clips from like a compilation of the Best Picture nominees or something like that, but maybe that's another way to focus more on the films that are being.
Do you think the Oscars would benefit if it was like a multi-night event? Like, let's say let's say it was like a 3-part thing. You know what I mean? Like, say it started Friday night, Saturday night, and ended Sunday night. And then you could do stuff like, hey, Friday night we're going to focus on like these 6 films, and then, the winners, you get this like a little behind the scenes look, or like they produce like some sort of they'd have to know all the winners way in advance to like make that kind of content. Or I guess all the nominees could shoot that stuff, and then whoever wins that gets showed. But like, you're spreading it out, but you can also make the show itself shorter. Like, each night's just like an hour long, so it's less of like a commitment for people.
But I almost think it is show up though.
Oh,
yeah, that's true.
For 3 days.
Yeah.
That's the other.
Yeah, it's like it's more a commitment to watch all 3 days in a row.
It's also more of a commitment for like the people involved, because it's like, all right, this is like a weekend or whatever. And that's kind of
also maybe it shouldn't be on Sunday.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, Sunday night is kind of a weird. It's
late night and you have work the next day. Really?
Yeah, it is kind of a. Yeah. The other thing is, does the Oscars even need like a of large viewing numbers because for the most part the Oscars is kind of just for that industry. It's like a show for them. You know what I mean? Like it's their accomplishments, they're the ones voting on the stuff. It's kind of like this self-contained group, and then we just kind of are like through the looking glass watching. You know what I mean?
Kind of,
like,
yeah.
So does it even need to have big, like a big viewing numbers or whatever, because it's not really for us. You know what I mean? And I guess you can argue that in no award show is, but the Oscars is like the top of the top, or at least it's presented that way. You know, like if you win an Oscar, that's the top thing that you're gonna get in that industry. You know, you win an Oscar, the next film you make, you get that graphic that says Academy Award winner. You know, Alec Baldwin is in this.
Oh
film.
yeah.
You know what I mean? And that just that boosts marketing appeal because people are like, oh shit, look how many Academy Award winners are in this film. This film's gonna be amazing. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
So
Yeah, I think, yeah, you're right. Maybe they don't really need to focus on, yeah. I don't think you need to focus on expanding your audience. Just focus on the audience you have, and
yeah, that's my. I feel like if they keep going down this rabbit hole that they're going, all it's gonna do is just make the Oscars seem less credible, and it's just gonna slowly kind of turn into like another People's Choice Awards. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
how many more Oscars down the road are they before they start sliming the winners? You know what I mean? Like. Like, I feel like that's
Call it those candid moments.
That's kind of the trajectory I feel like that they're trying to go down. Like, they're so desperate to get as many eyeballs on it as possible that I feel like they're losing the prestige of it.
Yeah. It's like, yeah, just keep that prestige for the show, but make the movies, more accessible. That's my view on that. It's all about the movies. It shouldn't be about having the funniest joke happen, the latest thoughts on whatever that the host will comment about. So
yeah, that's true. There is a lot of soapbox social commentary mixed into these shows in the last couple of years. So
yeah. Well, yeah. Do you have any other final thoughts about our views on the Oscars themselves?
No. There's literally nothing that they're doing that makes me want to watch it. So
yeah.
They're failing on that regard.
So do better with that. Yeah. Well, so that's enough about this, our thoughts on the ceremony themselves. What about the movies? I know, yeah, we mentioned we're not going to go through every single category and say who we think is going to win, but are there any nominees this year that you want to highlight, that you really liked, that you wish other people would watch too?
I feel like this is a question for yourself, since you've watched 42 of the films or whatever.
Hey, but you've watched some of the movies too. I'm sure you have.
Okay.
Give your shout out.
I watched Dune, I watched The Power of the Dog, and I watched 3/4 of Don't Look Up. So I've watched 2.75 Oscar films.
I saw Spider-Man. Does that count?
I mean, it's up for visual, isn't it?
Yes, visual.
Oh, Shang-Chi too.
Yeah.
And you've seen, let's see. I thought Cruella was nominated for
it's
makeup.
Nominated for makeup.
Yes.
Okay, well, I've seen Cruella then.
Yeah. So.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I feel like before we dive into this, we should probably take a break and gather our thoughts, and then come back with all our hot takes. Yeah.
There we go.
Does that sound good?
Yes, let's do that.
Indeed.
All right. We'll take a quick break, and then we'll come back with our hot takes. So, Stay tuned. All right, and we're back with our hottest of hot takes for the Oscars. We're going to talk about films that we have seen that we liked, some films that we want to spotlight, some notable snubs, stuff that we would like to see win, et cetera, et cetera. So, Chelsea, why don't you go ahead and start us off? Since you've seen like 90% of the films here, you probably have the most to add to this.
All right. Well, I'll start with... Sure, we'll just go with the best picture category. I'm just going to go right off the bat and say which ones were my favorite. I did really enjoy Drive My Car. That was a very strong film, very well made, excellent story. I know it's 3 hours long, but the payoff is great. It's worth every minute. I will say, though, that movie is interesting because the first, 40-ish minutes or so, I was watching that movie, and I'm like, okay, that was a little unnecessary. And then it was kind of, halfway towards the film, why did that part really matter? We could have just shaved off that 40 minutes or whatever. But then I'm like, no, it all had a place in it. It's a really interesting film. I also went into it not knowing anything about it. So it was pretty wild. Mm-hmm.
Now... Is it 3 hours long and it's like a slow burn, like it feels like 3 hours long? Or is it 3 hours long, but it's paced really well, so it kind of goes by in a breeze? You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, honestly, when I was watching the beginning, I was just like, this is just too much of a 40-minute, it's too long of a setup.
Yeah.
But everything else, the pacing of everything else was great. It was excellent. It was very, very interesting. It really kept you invested in the story, and it didn't feel especially later on in the movie, it didn't feel like I was wasting 3 hours of my life, or that I was looking at the clock every second to be like, okay, oh no, we've only watched this movie for 10 minutes. Oh gosh.
Yeah, it's one of those things, especially if you're streaming it, you hit pause and you're like, oh my god, I'm only 15 minutes into this. I feel like I've been sitting here for an hour.
Oh, well, I will give my hot take on one of the Best Picture nominees that I was definitely looking at the clock every 5 minutes.
Oh, yeah?
Same.
Can I guess?
Please, no. Yes,
wait, no,
please guess. No, it's okay. It shouldn't offend you too much.
It shouldn't offend me. I mean, I've only seen... so two of the films that I've seen are nominated for Best Picture. And... I don't think either one of them I was really looking at the clock. One of the films that's nominated for Best Picture, I for sure was, and I didn't even finish the film because I just got tired of it, and that was Don't Look Up. So is that the one you're talking about?
No, that one was just bad. Well, it was also just, for me, that movie was so painful to watch because I'm like, I already know this. You don't have to tell me about this, situation. This movie was not made for me, but I don't think it was made for the people who it should have been.
I don't think that film has an audience because I think the people that it's targeting are already aware of the satire and are just exhausted by it. And the people that it's making fun of are also the same oblivious people that wouldn't understand that they're being made fun of. So it really is a film that doesn't need to exist. And every time I comment on this film and why it's so bad, everyone's like, "Oh well, it's because you're a fucking alt-right idiot. You don't know." I'm just
jumping straight into that.
First off, I understand the theme and the point of this satire. It's just not good. The same film that came out fucking 40 years ago. Dr. Strangelove, which was also heavily satirical and social commentary of the time, that's an actually good movie, and it's actually really funny and really well made. Nothing about Don't Look Up is well made. The editing is knee-jerk. The writing is fucking dumb. I know it's kind of supposed to be dumb, it's supposed to be absurd,
but it's not enjoyable.
It's bad absurd. It's not even funny absurd. It's just And I think the only reason this film is so like well liked is because of the A-list cast.
Mm-hmm.
I guarantee you, if it was like a bunch of C and D listers in this film, it would just get shredded. Because like everything about it from like every angle is just fucking bad. Like it's like it's nauseating. And it's just like it's I don't know. God, it was I don't usually stop watching films. I think I've only done it twice in my life, and I've been watching films for 30 years. And I just couldn't anymore with this film because it just like scene after scene, I'm just like, this is awful. Like, and the fact that it's up for not just Best Picture, but like editing and like writing and all this other shit, and I'm just like, are you kidding me? Like, what movie did I get like a bad version? Did like Netflix upload the wrong cut? Like, is this the rough draft or something? Like, I also just don't really like Adam McKay's style. I think it's for people that have ADHD. Like, maybe he has ADHD? I don't know. But, like, there's no focus in that film at all. It's, like, all over the fucking place. It's just visual vomit with your favorite celebrity listed here. You know what I mean? Like, it's just the
with a scene of utter chaos. Yeah.
It's just the worst fucking movie ever. So, I
well...
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's not my most hated on that list. Sorry.
Is it Power of the Dog? Is that the other one?
No, I didn't enjoy that much, but I can definitely appreciate the cinematography and the acting in that. But no, I'll just say my least favorite Best Picture nominee is Licorice Pizza. I loathe that movie. Now, that movie is the definition of pointless. Like...
Hold on. Before we get into it, I haven't seen it yet, but I really want to because I really like Paul Thomas Anderson. I pretty much like all of his films. Are you a PTA like fan of his previous works? Because he's very much like he has a style and he has an audience, and it's not for everyone.
Yeah, I'm not his audience. I honestly don't think I've ever seen one of his other films. If it wasn't very memorable to me, so that's my hot take on that.
Fair enough. Yeah, I don't think I've ever met anyone else who, of course, a lot of the people that I know aren't like cinema savants, so they don't really go out and watch, Paul Thomas Anderson films. They're, watching Transformers and shit like that. So it's really hard to have a conversation. But I know that his films are like of a sort that are slow burns, that are they handle themes that are not controversial but could be considered distasteful or odd or unnecessary or exuberant, and that kind of stuff just doesn't always latch on to like everybody's sensibilities, I would say.
Yeah, that's true. I would definitely agree with that. Now, I will say though that when this movie, I did know about this movie before it was even released. I definitely remember hearing about it, and like, it seemed interesting at the time. Before the movie was released, I was like, okay, that, sounds very quirky, and I saw the first trailer for it, and I was like, okay, also, it definitely had that vibe. I was like, oh, of course, this will probably get, some nominations later on for the Oscars. Clearly it did. But then, when the movie was released, now, I definitely was aware of quite a few of the controversies surrounding this film. And I'm like, okay, that's unfortunate. So, like... The first big one is that let's just talk about the relationship right off the bat. We have the female character is 25 years old and the male character is 15.
Yeah.
And it's a kind of a romantic comedy, very debatable on that, but yep, that's the story. 25-year-old woman and a 15-year-old boy.
Oh, I think I remember the controversy.
She's making that boy a man.
Yeah. I think that
No, he's making her a woman. He's chasing after her the whole time.
and
Yeah.
everybody was just like, "Oh, like it's so sweet. It's such a good story." And everybody's like, "But what if it was flipped?"
Yeah.
And I'm like,
It's like
it's still
it's
yeah.
still like
Welcome to Paul
it's-
Thomas
yeah.
Anderson films.
Then it's
That's-
just also then it's I had heard about certain scenes from the movie being very racist. Now I know there's been lots of, stuff said afterward about the purpose of those scenes or whatever, but I think those did fall pretty flat and it wasn't very tasteful. And the movie, it just clearly was not made for me. I don't appreciate it. I think there are some other nominees that are a lot stronger for Best Picture. It's just, yeah, not for me. I thought it was a pointless movie. It was racist. It was sexist. It had an inappropriate relationship that they made okay. And just because this movie takes place during the 70s or whatever, doesn't mean that makes everything okay. So that's my take on Licorice Pizza.
Yeah, it's definitely on my radar because, like I said, I really like that director, mostly because his films are utterly gorgeous. One of my favorite movies of all time, There Will Be Blood, is a Paul Thomas Anderson film, and that film is phenomenal. It's actually probably one of his easier films to watch, I would say, probably. It still has some pretty interesting scenes. But yeah,
Well, you'll have to let me
I'll
know
check it out.
whenever you watch it if you think it's a beautiful film. Nothing about it. Not even the cinematography is beautiful.
Yeah, honestly, when I first saw like some marketing material for it, it didn't scream like, "Oh, this is a best cinematography," and nominee for sure. It looked more like his stuff, like his earlier stuff, like Magnolia or Punch Drunk Love or something more of that fare, as opposed to his more like grandiose, like Phantom Thread or Demastered and stuff like that.
Oh, just kidding. I have seen Phantom Thread. Never mind.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, that's a notable film also because it was Daniel Day-Lewis's like last.
Yes.
He actually worked a lot with Paul Thomas Anderson, so. But yeah. Well,
But,
sticking with
yeah,
Best
that's
Picture,
my
do you
take.
have one that you would like to see win?
I'd be happy with quite a few of them. Definitely Drive My Car was one of my favorites. One of my other favorites is Coda. So,
That's not Twitter's favorite right now.
well, Twitter can get over it. It's a good movie. I think it's also maybe why it's getting maybe it's why it's getting some weird negativity is that it's not your typical, in a way, like, it's not a very, like, weird or unusual in a way of, like a film that normally gets those kind of nods.
Yeah, it's
compared
it's not your artsy fartsy Oscar
Yeah.
darling.
No, like, it's still nice, and it has, it's a unique story. It's about a girl who's in high school, and both of her parents are deaf, because Coda is children of deaf adults. And she also has a brother who's deaf, and they live in Massachusetts, and their family are, like, fishermen. And it's just that whole dynamic of her, well, specifically, she's a hearing, like, she can hear, a hearing child, and that just, she's dealing with school and what she wants to do, but also those commitments to her family. And so, it's definitely, I could see people being like, well, it's a teen movie and stuff. Well, yeah, but there's a lot to it, and it's a really unique story that you don't often see told on screen, and it's a very well done movie. It has good writing, it has charm, makes you laugh, makes you cry, has everything.
A regular Disney Channel original.
No, better than a DCOM movie.
Do you have
Yeah.
what's your prediction? What do you think's gonna win?
Oh gosh, I mean,
In your most cynical side of your heart, what do you think?
it would be The Power of the Dog. That's the most cynical part of me. It's The Power of the Dog. But one movie I was actually disappointed didn't get Best Picture, but I feel like there's kind of a thing for Best Pictures that they really don't highlight animated films enough to be
yeah.
like, oh, that's Best Picture. Because one of them I do want to give a major shout out to Flea. Everybody should watch that movie. It is totally worth your time. It is up for a couple awards. It's up for its Best Animated Feature, and it unfortunately probably won't win that category as well
Unless
as
it has
for
the Disney stamp on it, it won't win.
yeah. It's up for
That's just how that category has gone for like ever.
yeah, it's up for documentary and international feature. So it's actually gotten quite a bit of nods, but it's beautiful. The animation is clearly a little bit different, not your typical like Disney fair animated film.
Yeah.
But it works really well with the subject. Very crazy story that you can't believe is real, like powerful storytelling. It's definitely worth a watch.
I'm pretty sure it's on is it on Hulu right now?
Yes, it's on Hulu.
I think I can't remember which service I've saved it to my watch list or whatever, but it's there.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I definitely want to check that out. That's another. We didn't talk about this, but that's another interesting thing. Do you think Best Animated films and Best Pictures should just be the same category? Like, do you think if it's an animated movie, should it be part of Best Pictures, or do you think that would keep from a lot of animated films from being like spotlighted? You know what I mean?
I think that if you had both categories, some people would see that animated movies have twice the chance to get the same reward, basically.
No, I would get rid of. I guess in this scenario, you would get rid of Best Animated Feature, and then just if there's an animated film that's amazing, it would be in Best Picture.
Yes.
Do you think that would? Do you think that would work, or do you think it would just be one of those things where it's like, oh, we have 9 like live action films, and then we have whatever Pixar made that year? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think that's in an ideal world. I would say, yeah, let's just have it all in one category for Best Feature. But I think that we're still in a time where people, when they see a movie that's animated, they immediately, what is this movie categorized? It's an animated film. And that's all they ever see it as. They don't quite go past that idea that it's animation and it could be more than something. I think there's definitely been more of a change in people's mindsets about animated films, that we've definitely seen a lot more groundbreaking things, really unique storytelling, some, so-called more adult stories being told through animation, that I think it will eventually get to that point. But
yeah, I still think that category is still kind of seen as like, oh, well, this is basically just the best kids film of the year.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think that's still how a lot of people like view it, even though a lot of animated movies have a lot of adult themes, just with colorful characters. So yeah, I was just curious about that. I've been thinking about that, but and my cynical side is just like, oh, well, most of the animated films won't even be nominated because they're animated and people don't appreciate that as much. So
yeah. Well, speaking of animated, I will give a shout out to The Mitchells vs. the Machines, because that's the other non-Disney movie that's nominated, and it's a very good film, and it's very unique, and I think people should give it a watch too and give it a chance.
Yeah, that's that Sony film, right? That had like the really unique animation.
Yes.
Yeah. See, I've been seeing a lot of buzz for that. I think it was on a Bong Joon-ho's like top 10 film list.
Oh, nice.
So that immediately put it on people's radar. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like for months, The Power of the Dog has been like what everyone's shoo-in, like, oh, this is definitely going to win. But I think just like last year and the year before, I think that they will throw a curveball and just like the winner will be a film that was like not heavily acknowledged elsewhere. Kind of like the Green Book and stuff like that. You know what I mean? Like, it would just be like one of these films that people weren't expecting will win. Which, whatever. They don't give a shit. But I just think that that's probably because everyone's just like, oh yeah, it's just going to be Power of the Dog. That's what's going to win. And it wouldn't surprise me if it wasn't,
Yeah. I mean, I'll be happy, if it's not, but sure, it'll just be expected. As long as it's not Licorice Pizza, I'm good.
I definitely don't think it'll be Licorice Pizza.
Yeah.
I don't really have like any opinion on what wins or not because I haven't seen anything.
Yeah.
But I was, I was taking a gander at the Oscars list earlier because I didn't know what was going on at all, and I came across Best Movie, and I was like, oh, okay, and then I saw something on there, and I was like, what? Why? Why is West Side Story there?
An excellent question, Wade.
Like, it's a Spielberg movie, right? Like, he did it.
Mm-hmm.
It's a Spielberg.
So it's his fault, I guess. But, like, is it just because he did it? Like, is it an expectation we have to meet?
I mean...
Because, like, it's just, like, 12 people saw it, and 11 of those people didn't like it. So, why? Why?
Yeah.
Everything that... I haven't seen the film. I don't really put a lot of stock into, like, straight-on remakes, especially for, like, award contenders, because... I don't know, I just don't think remakes should even be acknowledged because a lot of the work's already done for you. I guess.
It could be its own separate category, I feel like,
Yeah,
if you really
maybe.
want to do
There's, it. Yeah, I don't know. And that's not to discredit the work that the people who made it put into it, but everything that I've seen in my sphere of the Twitterverse, everyone really liked it more for its cinematography than anything else.
Okay.
That was a lot of the positive buzz that I was seeing for that film is mostly just like how it was shot and presented, and I guess for Rachel Zegler's performance, but other than that, and like Faust, but other than that, like I don't think anyone has any serious expectations for it to win anything. I mean, that actress I just mentioned, she wasn't even invited to the Oscars.
The girl who plays Anita for supporting, she was nominated.
She was nominated for
Which she did a really great job, and I'm kind of surprised for the nomination, but she did a great job. She helped that movie, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I will say, some of the cinematography was good, but the stylistic choices for the lighting and the heavy use of CGI, oh goodness. We already saw Wes.
Is there a lot of CG in it?
Why?
Why do we need to see a rundown town at the whole city at the beginning? That's just all CG. There's no way it wasn't CG. It looks so bad. It was like watching Ready Player One. And I was like, Spielberg, we need to have a talk.
You're getting senile, Spielberg.
Yeah, that's pretty gross.
I don't know. That's just the vibes I gave. I'm like, well, and I think it's kind of just, why was this nominated for Best Picture? The original, I'm pretty sure, won Best Picture when it came out. The original is good. We don't really need to make another one. I think sometimes remakes, they could happen if the first one really sucked. Or if there's a new way to perceive the information, but it's not that much different. Except for some cool shots and some people who are really good at singing.
I don't have a problem with one-to-one remakes because it gives a new generation, I guess, a reason to watch it, because a lot of people have a hard time watching older films. So it's just like, all right, well, it's basically just a redux version. It's the same film, just watch the new one. My thing is, like, I don't think it should be considered for awards if it's a one-to-one remake. Like, that's, I just don't, I don't know. I just don't get that. Or just especially Best Picture.
Re-release the old one.
Especially Best Picture, because it's like, we know it's a Best Picture because it's already been a fucking movie, and it already was a Best Picture. So why are you just, it's redundant at this point.
Just piggybacking off of its success for your own success.
It's riding the original's coattails, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. And I love Spielberg, and I like Kaminsky, the cinematographer, because his style of like really contrasty, like specular light is really interesting to me, and that's part of, like, that's a lot in this film. Out of all the not to jump around, but like out of all the, like, it's nominated for best cinematography as well, but it's, in my opinion, it's like definitely the weakest out of all the others, like 1,000%. So, but yeah, I don't know. it's I don't know. I don't know why it was nominated over all the other stuff that's been out there. And I think it's just
Well,
I think it's
Flea
just
should have
music.
been there,
I
but
guess
you know, because it's
a
animated.
musical. I don't know. They're like, oh well, let's just throw in a musical because they're that's like not a prominent genre anymore. So let's just do it. I guess I don't know. I still would like to watch it, but
Yeah.
but I don't.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah. Well, there's 2 places people can watch it, on Disney Plus and HBO Max. So
Yeah, I got it.
you can let us know.
I got it on my Disney watch list, along with 1,000 other fucking things I need to watch.
So many movies.
Do you have any snubs, Chelsea, that you besides Flea for Best Picture?
Yeah. No, I have one movie in particular that wasn't nominated for anything, and that film is Passing. It was released on Netflix in last November.
That's the black and white film, right?
Yeah. With 2 spectacular actresses who didn't get any nominations whatsoever, Tessa Thompson and Ruth Negga. Both of them were excellent in that. The cinematography in that movie is actually pretty great.
Yeah.
And
yeah, I remember seeing stills and stuff for that. Wasn't that Rebecca Hall that directed it?
yes.
Wasn't that like her debut, I think? Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was very like visually striking. I remember that.
Yeah. So that's definitely one. And then Spencer didn't get nominated for makeup and hairstyling.
It also didn't get nominated for cinematography, which always pisses me off because the cinematographer, Claire Mathon, I don't know, she's French, I'm pretty sure, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. She never gets nominated for anything, and her style is so fucking good. Like, and it's so unique. Like, her films, like, it's just, I don't know. You don't really see a lot of that stuff that has kind of like this hazy, low contrast kind of, like, people say it looks flat, but I think it looks so fucking good.
It works for the movie.
Yeah, God, yeah. It drives me crazy that she never gets acknowledged for anything in any of the work she does. But yeah.
Hopefully one day.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are my biggest snubs. Do you have any?
Only snub I have that really, really pissed me off was Denis Villeneuve not getting nominated for Best Director. If you don't know, he directed Dune, which got nominated for like 10 or 11 Oscars or some shit, but not Best Director. That seems kind of stupid to me. Instead, Steven Spielberg gets nominated for West Side Story.
Could have just switched those. Yeah.
So I just feel like it was kind of a clerical error, and they just never fixed it. Because it doesn't make sense to me that a film could be nominated for, double-digit awards and not acknowledge the director. Who the fuck do you think is managing that film and handling all those departments? And, who's directing all this stuff that's getting awarded, but he doesn't get awarded? Like, I don't even care if he won. It's stupid that he didn't even get nominated. Like, it doesn't even make sense to me. So, that's my 2 cents on the snubs. It's just baffling to me. And I don't know if it's just because a lot of people are saying it's just because Dune's like half of a film, and they'll just do it when part 2 comes out. And that's fine. They did that same shit with Peter Jackson and the Lord of the Rings films. But I swear to God, Dune Part 2 comes out, and it's just as amazing, and they don't nominate him. The fucking Oscars are dead to me.
You heard it here.
This dude is like one of the best like sci-fi directors of our like generation, and he never gets acknowledged for his work. So,
wow.
That's fucking.
Hopefully, it'll be soon then.
Yeah.
Wow.
But yeah, that's the only snub that I really have. I don't really have any stakes on who wins because I already have my opinions on what I like, and winning or losing isn't going to change. I guess change that. it just, for me, it does irk me when people don't even get acknowledged. Like, the nomination is kind of just as important to me as like a win. So I would just like to see these people who've been doing incredible work for years and never even been nominated, and then you get these people that are, to me, are like phoning it in and get nominated. So that kind of shit drives me crazy. So yeah.
Wade, do you have any movies?
Wade, did you think
wanna...
Spider-Man for Best Picture?
Yes, for Andrew Garfield, just for Andrew Garfield. He deserves the world.
Isn't he up for Tick Tick Boom? Or is that...
I think so.
He is.
I think I saw him on the list.
Because he won one of
Which he's good in that.
He won one of the awards for, was it like a BAFTA or like one of the guilds or something? He won. There's so many fucking awards. There's so, like, every guild has.
There's been so many, like, every week too.
Yeah, and then the critics have their own award show, like all this stuff. The BAFTAs, like all this stuff leading up to the Oscars. So, but I'm pretty sure he won one of them for his performance.
Just not his performance in Spider-Man. No.
Yeah, not for Spider-Man, for being the guy that created Rent.
Yes.
So. Which is that was a film made by your favorite person, Wade Lin-Manuel Miranda. So you should check it out.
But it's actually a good movie though, and Andrew Garfield does a great job. It's very interesting. So I know, even though it's him, but it's worth a watch.
We'll see. It's
on Netflix. It's on Netflix. Check it out.
Yes, on Netflix.
Yeah. So, any other hot takes? Any other opinions or anything you want to get off your chest?
No, I think I've already said my hot takes.
All right. Well, I guess you can take us out then. That kind of
okay.
Will put a bow on this Oscar episode. So.
Yes, you're right. So, yeah, thanks to all of our listeners for listening to this week's episode all about our Oscars and our thoughts on this year's nominees. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Pod Demastered. Let us know, your thoughts on the nominees. Do you like it? Do you have a favorite movie? Do you have any ideas on who you think will win this year? Let us know. You can also send us an email at demasteredpodcast@gmail.com. And as always, just please make sure to like and subscribe wherever you listen to this podcast, and feel free to share it with a friend. Also, please leave us a review, or just, let us know what type of topic you want to see us cover next. So thanks again, everybody, for listening, and we hope you tune in next week.
See you later, guys.
See ya.